James Ellison was the kind of man who had everything, or so it seemed from the outside. A successful architect in Chicago, he lived in a stylish townhome with his wife Marissa, a soft-spoken woman with an eye for detail and a heart too big for her own good. They had been married for 9 years. To everyone around them, they looked perfect. Vacation photos in Tuscany, Sunday brunches in the city, witty banter at dinner parties. But beneath the polished surface, something rotted quietly. James had long since lost his way. It had started 3 years into the marriage. Late nights at work, too many drinks at networking events, fleeting compliments from strangers. The first time he slept with another woman, it was in a hotel in New York. A fellow architect, bold and brilliant, and nothing like Marissa. It was a one-night stand. Or so he told himself. But it didn't stop. James had a weakness for the chase, for feeling desired. He justified it to himself. He never brought these women home. He never fell in love with them. It's just physical, he said. I always come back to her. And he did. Every time. He would slide into bed next to Marissa after hours away, whisper a soft lie about work emergencies, kiss her shoulder, and fall asleep as if nothing had happened. The bed was warm, but the love had gone cold. Marissa wasn't naive. She saw the signs. The late-night texts he hid. The scent of another woman's perfume. The emotional distance that widened over time like a slow-spreading crack in a foundation. But she didn't confront him at first. Instead, she tried harder. New recipes, couples therapy, surprise dates. She loved him, perhaps too much to let go. But love, unreciprocated, becomes a quiet form of self-harm. One night, James met someone new. Her name was Colette. She was younger, fierce, magnetic. Their affair lasted months, longer than the others. For the first time, James wondered what it would be like to leave Marissa. But Colette had no interest in being his mistress forever. Be a man, she told him. Make a choice. So he did. He told Marissa the truth. Or rather, a watered-down version of it. There's someone else, he said. I didn't mean for it to happen. Marissa listened silently. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured herself a glass of water. Then, with remarkable calm, she replied, You've been leaving me for years, James. This is just the first time you told me. There were no screaming matches. No throne plates. Marissa simply packed a small suitcase, left their home, and moved into her sister's spare bedroom. She filed for divorce quietly 2 weeks later. James moved in with Colette. For a while it felt right. But time revealed truths he had ignored. Colette didn't love him. She loved the thrill, the secrecy, the danger of the affair. As soon as their relationship became mundane, she drifted away. Within 6 months she was gone. Left alone in the sleek, cold home he once shared with Marissa, James found that the silence he had once craved now echoed like guilt. He tried calling Marissa once, months later. She didn't answer. She had started over. New job, new apartment, even someone new in her life. Someone who saw her, stayed with her, chose her. James still had the bed, the house, the job, but the space beside him remained empty. Not physically, emotionally, permanently. Because some things once broken don't mend. Some choices once made cannot be taken back. And some people once left too many times, learn never to wait again. James still walked the same streets, drank the same coffee, showed up to work with the same pressed shirts and tight smile. But internally, he was no longer the man who had once juggled affairs with careless ease. He had become a shell, well-dressed, well-paid, and deeply alone. He hadn't tried to sleep around again. The thrill was gone. What remained was a gnawing dullness, like an ache in a tooth long dead. He no longer fooled himself with justifications. He knew what he had destroyed, and who. Marissa. He sometimes found himself reaching for her name mid-sentence, as if she still existed in his daily vocabulary. But she didn't. Not in conversations with friends. Not in family gatherings, where his mother now gave him a cold smile and asked nothing about his personal life. She was good to you, his sister had said once, carefully, as if afraid her words might splinter him. "I know," he replied. It was the first time he had said it aloud. Meanwhile, Marissa's life had become one of quiet resurrection. She had moved into a cozy apartment near the lake, started painting again, and began volunteering at a local community center. For years, she had poured all her energy into trying to hold a man's attention. Now that energy belonged to her. Her new partner, Daniel, was a writer. Kind, curious. He didn't dazzle with grand gestures. He simply showed up every day and stayed. Marissa, cautious and scarred, had let him in slowly. But with each month she opened more. Daniel never asked about James. He didn't need to. He could see the echoes in the way she flinched at silence or guarded her laughter like a secret. One autumn evening, James ran into her by accident at a bookstore cafe. She was seated near the window, reading, her hair tucked back in a way he remembered. For a moment, she looked up and their eyes met. It was not cinematic. There was no angry confrontation, no desperate plea. Just two people with a long history and no future. James approached slowly. "Marissa," he said, voice low. She closed her book gently. "Hi, James. I didn't know you still came here." "I do," she said. "Sometimes." He nodded. "You look happy." She tilted her head, considering him for a second. "I am. And you?" Was. A subtle smile of defeat. "I'm getting there." Marissa nodded and stood to leave. She wasn't cruel. She didn't gloat. But she had nothing else to say. As she walked past him, he almost reached out, but stopped himself. Outside, Daniel was waiting in the car. Marissa slipped into the passenger seat and took his hand as he drove. She never mentioned the encounter. James watched from the window as the car disappeared into the orange glow of early evening. He went home that night and lay in bed. On his side, the sheets were crumpled. On hers, untouched. He finally understood something that had taken too long to realize. It wasn't just that Marissa had left. It was that she had stopped missing him long before she walked away. And now, he was the one haunted by the empty side of the bed. Years passed. The sharp pain dulled into a quiet ache. The regrets stopped screaming and instead became soft reminders, like the sound of rain against glass. Life had moved on as it always does. But scars don't vanish. They simply become part of the landscape. James turned 48 in silence. No big party. Just a quiet dinner alone in the corner of a restaurant he used to love. He had moved into a smaller apartment by then. Modern, clean, and soulless. No framed wedding photos. No evidence of who he used to be. His work remained steady, though less inspired. He no longer took on massive projects. Instead, he taught part-time at a local college, mentoring young architects who still had stars in their eyes. Some days, he saw flashes of himself in their ambition, both the brilliant and the blind parts. He tried in his own quiet way to warn them, don't build a perfect structure on a crumbling foundation. It always collapses. Marissa, on the other hand, had remarried. She and Daniel lived in a 2-story house near the woods with a garden in the back. On weekends, she painted in the sunroom. On some days, they'd drive out to small towns, pick up old books, antique clocks, or nothing at all. They were at peace. No fireworks, no drama. Just steady, ordinary love, the kind she had always deserved. She didn't hate James. Not anymore. Time had softened the edges. What had once been betrayal now felt like a lesson. Painful, yes, but necessary. Sometimes in dreams she saw his face, not with longing but with understanding. In those dreams, he wasn't the man who hurt her. He was just a man who didn't know how to be whole. James never remarried. He dated here and there but nothing stuck. He knew deep down that part of him had been left behind on the night Marissa walked out the door. And part of her, her trust, her belief in him, had died long before that. But he wasn't bitter. He had finally accepted it. Not everyone gets a second chance. Some only get a moment, a window, and when it closes, you live with what you did inside it. On some mornings, James would wake up and place his hand on the cool side of the bed beside him. It was still empty, but it no longer startled him. It was simply what remained.